Hey guys, it's Hink here. Now, one of the things that I swear is going to be debated until the end of time, more so than religious ideals, is the actual size of an average penis. And no matter how many videos I make, it always comes up. Now, there's certain comments that I read that are just so egregious, it forces me to kind of take a step back. On my last video, which you haven't seen it, you should check it out. But this comment was left here. Hink is a big-time coper. Not even Calc SD agrees with Hink that 8 inches is 1 in 500. 8 inches is 1 in 100 people. Regardless of this comment, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, I felt the need to break down Calc SD and see where they got their data from, and so we can make some educated conclusions about actual average data. Now guys, before we get started, I cannot say enough good things about Calc SD. It is one of the most meticulous, most well thought out, most honestly amazing resources when it comes to penile health and information ever. I mean, probably ever. I mean, this is the pinnacle of penile size research in my opinion. It doesn't mean that it's not flawed. Please, especially if heaven forbid somebody from Calc SD is reading this, Calc SD is the gold standard in my opinion. The data are what the data are because data is technically plural, datum is singular. But the point is that this is really good data, but we need to discuss it. Specifically, what we're going to be talking about today is Western average, guys, because if you look on CalcSD, the Western average is 5.79 inches. That is significantly bigger than what I quote, which is about 5.2 inches from the MI normal data set. I wanted to go through and break down the papers where they actually form their conclusions for this data set. I'm a clown in a mask. Don't listen to what I say. I encourage you to go on to CalcSD. The link will be in the description probably. Go through each of these papers where you can see where they got the numbers from. But we're going to do a rapid fire today. Guys, so first of all, you have to understand that most of this data is from stretched flaccid length. My stretched flaccid length personally is significantly bigger than my erect length. And I think that is the same for most, not all. Well, actually, not all, but a lot of people that is the case. And so when you are using stretched flaccid length data and forming an erect data set from it, that is fundamentally erroneous. But on top of that, here's a data set from Argentina right here where they measure stretched flaccid length. First of all, these are guys going in for urologic procedures. It doesn't say if they're trying to go in cosmetic urologic procedures or what. This paper, which I'll put the link in the description, you can actually see for yourself how they actually measure length is terrible. They measure stretched flaccid length. What you can see here is that they take the tape is kind of loose, which is a tailor's tape, not a hard ruler tape, and they measure it and they bring it around. This tube is about whatever, 11 inches or whatever that is, because of bringing the tape around to the front and not keeping it straight and measuring from the top up. Fundamentally flawed in that way. You're adding at the very least a good centimeter of distance when you measure that way. They put the pictures in there, which I applaud them for, but it shows how bad their measurements are in this study that CalcSD uses to draw their conclusion. Several of these articles, like this one, it doesn't include stretched flaccid length or erect length. It's just flaccid length. Now, I'm sure there's a data set for like flaccid size. I mean, I guess everybody cares. But the point is, when we're talking about erect Western measurements and it doesn't even have that, then like, what are we doing here? This one, where literally the link to the study doesn't even work anymore. And so either like, I don't know, maybe they didn't pay the website fee, or there was a flaw in the data that they used, and so they redacted the data and took it away because they didn't want guys reading it. Creepily enough, they actually used several data sets that uses actually pediatric data. So guys, look at the methods of this paper. We examined 6,200 white males aged 0 to 19 years old. This is literally including pediatric data. Here's a study that they included looking at testicular size and how that correlates with semen parameters. But yet it doesn't even mention like flaccid or even stretched flaccid and heaven forbid erect length included in the data set that they used. Here's an actual, like a great study that they used. They randomly tested over 3,000 men aged 17 to 19. So still like, you know, some of these guys haven't even fully developed yet, but the average stretch length was 12.5 centimeters or 4.9 inches. And so this is a random sampling, which is more representative of a general population with a significantly smaller than average length noted, almost a full inch smaller. But see, I personally think some of this data should be weighted more heavily because it's better data. And then guys, they use these data sets with severe selection bias. So this is a study that they advertised in schools. Hopefully by schools, they mean like universities, but it was to measure like penile size and length correlation and how that relates to condom use. They literally said, they advertised in the schools like, hey guys, we're doing a study where we're interested in the size of your penis. How many normal sized guys or even small guys are going to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to volunteer to have my penis size measured? In this study, the results, there were actually two groups. One was a self-stimulated group and measure, and one was actually injected with PGE1 to actually induce an erection. And what they found was that in the self-stimulated group, they were 14.48 centimeters, which is 5.7 inches. And then in the injection group, it was 14.18 centimeters or 5.8 inches. Think about that. So 5.58 inches or 5.7 inches compared with the study we just talked about where they used a random selection and the average was 4.9 inches. Do you see why that matters? Next, we're going to look at this study out of Brazil, where they basically said, do you identify as a white Brazilian or a black Brazilian? And then once they determine that, they're like, can we ask you questions about your penis size? So once again, guys, they're selecting for the guys that are going to feel comfortable talking about the size of their penis. Now, what makes this data particularly unique is this result set here. So here's a graph here where you can see the question is, do you get embarrassed in case someone sees you naked because of your penis? And look at the responses. Almost either 70% or above of both groups say that they never get embarrassed about the size of their penis. That's largely because in this group, we're with, once again, selection bias. The average length for the black Brazilians was 16.5 centimeters or 6.5 inches versus 15.8 centimeters in the white population or 6.2 inches. Now, guys, how does that compare to general data when you poll men about their penis size? So according to another study, a different study by Veal et al., it showed that 30% report dissatisfaction with their genitalia and only 35% of men were very happy with their penis size, where in this study we just saw, Callie, put the chart up again, but it was almost 70% of guys were like, no, I'm never insecure about the size of my penis. That does not correlate with the general population's feeling about their, small penis anxiety for the most part. And guys, just look at the data set here. Do you see any even relatively recent studies? And there's one study that was published in 2022, which we already talked about, which is not great data. And I know what you're thinking. Well, Hink, what about that paper that showed that worldwide trends in penis sizes increasing?
Don't do the voice.
Well, guys, I've already talked about, see my video on our penis sizes increasing. But guys, I break down that data. Not going to crash out on this one yet. I'm going to crash out, I can assure you. We talked about this. They literally say in their methods, which I put up here, they do not include self-reported data. But then what do they include in the data? Self-reported data. Like this study out of Italy, which literally is just self-reported data. It's just self-reported data, but it's more recent self-reported data. So they're like, haha, see? Penis sizes are increasing. Derp. I mean, good Lord, these guys are idiots who did that study. How did that even get published? Who was editing that? That's the point of reviewers. Guys, peer-reviewed articles are supposed to weed out dog shit like this and be like, hold up. They say they don't include self-reported data, but they included self-reported data. We have to exclude this. And once again, guys, so many of these studies, if anything, are just measuring stretch flaccid length, which correlates with erect length, but it is not a one-to-one. If you made it this far, just take a second and leave a thumbs up for your boy. It goes a long way. And guys, I'm on my way to 100K, and your subscription could help me get there. So I would greatly appreciate that and consider it a personal favor to me if you were to do that. Real quick, I always quote the Veal data, and I'm going to just be brutally honest here, okay? Why do I like it? Well, it's a meta-analysis. It actually uses erect data sets and not just stretch flaccid. And it includes a very large sample size. I mean, and it's published relatively recently in 2015. I think it's a great representation in general overall. Now, it's not without its flaws. So what are some of those flaws? This is largely based in a clinical or a hospital setting where doctors are measuring the actual penis size, not necessarily representative of the general population. Most of the subjects were from Europe or Asia in this study, or the Middle East, and so it's not representative of more of the Western populations. So the study included over 15,000 data sets, or 15,000 sizes, but of that, about 1,600 of them actually included erect data. But once again, at least it has erect data, but it is a relatively small sample size of true erect data. The date range of when they did this study varied pretty widely, and so you can see studies from the 80s and some more recent studies as well. And because of those discrepancies in time measurements, some of them used calipers versus some of them used rulers. And so you have to take that with a grain of salt. And guys, just, it's honest hour time. Like, I also like the data because it is like smaller data. Like, I do like the fact that they're saying the average size is 5.2 inches. I think that's going to make a lot of guys feel better about the size that they have. Whereas if you use a Western data set that says 5.7, 5.8 inches, and you're 5.5, and you think you're either below average using that data, or you think you're above average using the Veal et al. Data. We really have to ask, how much does this truly matter? I want to know in the comments, like, how much to you does it matter if I'm saying that using the Veal et al. Data, the average is 5.2 inches, which I'm actually rounding up a bit there according to the data, is 5.19, versus using 5.4 on Calc SD, or once again, if you use the flawed, it's not Calc SD's fault, but the flawed Western data that says 5.8 inches is average across Calc SD. So guys, you also have to keep in mind, let's just say we're using the Veal et al. Data, which says 5.2 inches is average with a standard deviation range of 0.67 centimeters. That's right at about 1/4 of an inch, or about 2.25 inches. And so if you're incorporating that standard deviation range, the Calc SD average falls within that of being 5.4. And so still talking about a very, very similar average D size. Does it really matter that much? Now it's crash out season. No, I'm not going to crash out. But we're going to go back to this guy's comment. He says, Hink is a big time coper. Not even Calc SD agrees with Hink that 8 inches is 1 in 500. So we're going to pause that there. Where I'm getting that data from is that Veal et al. Study. If you type in, calculate basically the standard deviation range and the average range, and once you start getting above certain standard deviations, the rarity of the size, I calculated this table here, which puts the chance of you being 8 inches at about 1 in 500,000. He says, Ascension 10102 says 8 inches is 1 in 100. So guys, let's back it up and go to Calc SD, and let's see what Calc SD says. Well, look at here. According to Calc SD, in a room of 1 million people, if you are 8 inches, 23 will be bigger. Let's see some mental math real fast. So that's about an odds of about 1/45,000. So who do you think is closer according to Calc SD? 1 in 45,000? Or 1 in 100. I don't know, guys. I'm not a math guy. You let me know. And guys, like, the other thing is, like, I mean, hopefully you guys know I'm a scumbag scammer. At least I try not to be. But wouldn't it behoove me to be like, guys, the average is, I know it says 5.4 on Calc SD, but the average is actually 5.8. You need to buy my course and learn how to get bigger because you're not even average. Like, wouldn't that help my bottom line if I were to do that, rather than be like, guys, the average is 5.2 inches. You're good as you are. But if you want to get bigger, you can do these things. But that's neither here nor there, guys. The fact of the matter is, there's real data, there's real science. You can get bigger. I have my Hink trial where, on average, with published photos, you can see that the guys gained over 1/2 inch in length and 1/4 inch in girth. And guys, I said this before, what matters more than actually the size you have is maximizing your erection quality. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. Remember, guys, you're more than the size of your D. Be the best version of yourself. There's nothing wrong with self-improvement, but you are enough just as you are. And I mean that, guys, regardless of what the fucking average is, you are enough just as you are. All right, guys, peace and love.
Dr. Hink got the plug on the health, yeah. Got you thinking about your wealth, yeah. In his office, no stealth, yeah. Pinnacle of that below the belt, yeah. Checks and balance, he's managing. Working miracles, no damage. Got you covered, no panicking. Steady calm. In the clinic, no vanishing. Yeah, with Doc Hink, it's the way back.